Abortion happens every day. Millions of people around the world will have an abortion each year, but the majority of those people will never talk about their abortion experiences. What if millions of people broke their silence and told the truth about their lives and their choices? We also rarely hear from those who make abortion care possible. What if we understood more about the people who dedicate their lives to that work? This episode of The Abortion Diary is in collaboration with the Abortion Care Network and was recorded at the Abortion Care Network's 2019 annual conference. The Abortion Care Network is a national association for independent, community-based abortion clinics and their allies. This interview is part of a series of interviews with abortion care providers and advocates recorded in 2019 and 2020 that will be posted on the Abortion Diaries podcast throughout the year. This is Melissa Madera in Pembroke Pines, Florida, and you're listening to the Abortion Diary podcast. These are the stories we share.
My name is Oriaku Njoku. I'm the co-founder and executive director of Access Reproductive Care Southeast. We're a regional abortion fund or a regional reproductive justice org that does abortion funding in the Southeast, in 6 different states in the South.
And how did you get involved in abortion care?
Yeah. So I remember I had gotten involved in reproductive justice work. And so I went to a NILNI/CLIP conference and was like, wow, this is really interesting, because I was really focusing on like the immigration piece at the time. And then I wasn't finding a job in immigration. So I was like, oh, well, I do want to do some of this like reproductive justice work that they're talking about. So let me just look up feminist jobs. And so it was like the feminist majority or something used to have these job postings or something. And I saw one for an abortion clinic in Atlanta, and I was like, I guess why not? Like right now I'm working in a spa, so I'm sure there's like transferable skills from answering phones at a spa to answering phones at an abortion clinic. Why not? So that's actually how I got started. I applied, and my first abortion care job was working as a phone advocate at Atlanta Women's Center. And it was through that, like maybe in the first 3 months, I was like, oh, y'all, like we need to start a fund or something. Because I also had transitioned into doing some of the financial advocacy work too. And just seeing like what the need was, where people are traveling from. I was like, we've got to show up for Southerners in a more meaningful way. And it needs to be coming from us, like from folks in community. So I was like, let's start a fund. That was in 2014, was just like the conversations. And then we got incorporated by the state of Georgia by May 5th of 2015, and then started funding officially in July of 2016. So that's like the entry point into all the stuff.
And did you imagine yourself doing work in abortion care at this point? I mean, like you're doing all this work now.
Yeah,
like you're the
yeah.
center of like funding people in the Southeast. Did you imagine yourself doing any kind of abortion work?
Never. I mean, yeah, it never had crossed my mind before, like getting into the reproductive justice work. Even applying for the clinic, I was like, sure, yeah, I'll do it. I mean, it's like providing customer service to people. Like, that's what I thought originally. It's like, it's a job. It's like feminist adjacent. Like, I could do this and get some experience. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm called to do. Yeah, in that moment.
And how does it feel to be doing all this kind of work in your community, in your own community?
Yeah, it feels amazing. It feels like, and my sister is like really out front with like sharing that she's had an abortion. And I remember when she did, and I was like one of the first people that she called, and we were talking about like what her options were. And I just remember like not knowing what to do in that moment. And so now knowing that, one, my sister works with me, which is pretty cool. And so she's able to like tell her story on the Healthline, like as she's working with folks too. But just knowing that like when folks call us, they're able to get the care that they need without any bias or barriers. They're able to talk to someone who looks like them in community, who might be like, oh yeah, Wayuka Road, that's over by here, It just feels really good to give back in that way, but knowing that we're doing this work because it's like people like me, it's people like us, that we're in community with, that we're supporting. So it's like we do this work for the people who we live with and work with and love, and that includes like, it's like I'm not removed from community in doing this work. So it's just like no one else is going to do it for us, so it might as well be us,
Yeah. What about the work that you do you love?
I really love A couple of things. A couple of things. But I think the biggest thing that I love is like building relationships with people and making those connections between like abortion or abortion access work and whatever they're passionate about. Just really deeply listening to people and being able to make those connections for them to be like, and this is why you should also be an advocate too, you know? And just like, I also enjoy like bringing fun into this work. This can be very doomsday sometimes. You hear like post-row, what are we gonna do? What, you know, everything feels so dire sometimes, but to really like bring joy and love into the workplace every single day, knowing that you're bringing that joy to the people who you're supporting as well, like it just means so much. Yeah, those are the two things I just love so much about the work, honestly.
You can't name them all.
I know. It's like there's so many things I could just keep talking about, like why I love this work so much. But,
what are you really proud of?
Yeah. Oh, I think I'm really proud of. I was like, oh, you know, just looking back. I feel like we've been like creating these like safer and braver spaces for people to like unapologetically be themselves and bring themselves like to this movement. Being like, it doesn't have to look a certain way. You could be as ratchet as you want to be, but understand that there is like rigor required but behind doing this work, which is why we're always like ratchet and rigor. But yeah, I think that's what I'm most proud of is that like we're creating these like braver and safer spaces for people to like ask questions, like have courageous conversations with family members, with, you know, other people in community, ask those like seemingly dumb questions that are not dumb at all, you know? Yeah. And people leaving being like feeling affirmed at the same time. I think that's something really special that we've been able to do.
What's really hard?
What is really hard? One, doing this work regionally where there's in the 6 different states, there's 6 different ways of doing things. There's 6 different types of requirements. And because the opposition is so smart with their like tactics, you know, this is stuff that they've been planning for decades, you know? And so even though they've been planning it for decades, you never know what's gonna happen. So this uncertainty around like the political or like the legislative things like makes it really difficult sometimes. Being like, oh, okay, is the blades of grass gonna keep you from like getting the care that you need, or you know, or whatever it is, like whatever it could be, all of the trap laws, like there's just so many things that I think make it a little bit difficult. The uncertainty really is the thing that makes it difficult to do this work, you know? So just like being prepared for like all the things all the time, you know? Makes it kind of hard. And then sometimes just like not having enough like funds, you know, even though I definitely don't believe in this like scarcity sort of, you know, mindset, but it's just like, I wish we had more, you know, I know it's out there. I wish we had more to be able to fund all the abortions and, you know, get all the hotel rooms that we need to and train all the people we need to train, you know, but yeah, those are some hard things.
And not having money is like a real thing.
Yes,
Real thing.
Especially when you're funding people, you know, with money. So like always fundraising in spite of like, or at the same time as like all this uncertainty is happening is like always trying to make sure all the moving parts are moving in harmony with each other. So
it's amazing that you do what you do and that you can like, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's not easy. Like it's not easy. It's not been like smooth sailing, you know, the whole time, but it's always this like willingness to be like, let's try some things. Let's I don't know, let's just try. Let's just try. Let's just take some risk. Let's just own up when we've messed up. Like, yeah, that's all you can do because we're just trying. This is something that like hasn't really been done. So, yeah. And what I'm saying as far as like what hasn't been done is like having like people of color leadership like this, like at an abortion fund in the South, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. And what does it feel like to you to be like a woman of color in the South, raising funds, doing work in your own community? What is it like for you, and also what does it mean to you?
Yeah, what it's like, I would say, is, I mean, of course, there's like tons of shenanigans you have to deal with, depending on who you're talking to, with people being like, who are you? You know, because really I was like, I didn't come up with this like feminist handbook of like, you take this women's studies course, you read this book, and now you're like this feminist that everyone knows, and we're gonna, you have this like legacy of people who like supported your leadership. Like it just kind of like came. Um, and so like navigating those questions sometimes is something that's like a little difficult. But at the same time, it makes me really proud to be like, okay, no, it's a challenge that I'm up for. Like, you know, you're not gonna like discount me, like you're not gonna discount the people who like live in this community as well. So it always like, I don't know, I always have to listen to some trap music or some like gangsta like something to like get me hyped for any of these conversations. Because it's like, no, put your armor on and let's do this. Like, let's fight this fight. Yeah. And I think like the significance of it is just like even the visibility of like being a Black queer femme in the South, like who is a first generation immigrant, like doing this work, just shows of like the diversity of the South and diversity of people who are able to do this work as well. So I feel like having that kind of representation is key in like creating this cultural shift around like who's expected to do this kind of work, who's expected to have their voices heard, who's expected to create policy changes or like system changes. Yeah, just like being out there and not being afraid, I think is like slowly starting to create a shift. And hopefully will open up ways and doors for like other folks who are part of community who may not have the grassroots, grass tops lingo or whatever. Like it'll give them a chance to do this work as well, and find a place in all of it.
And even though all these moving parts, there's all these moving parts, and you're dealing with all these things that are happening and the way people react to you also, like you still come and do the work.
Yeah.
So what is it that brings you every day to continue to do that work?
Yeah, I think my ancestors are always with me like all the time, and just like I feel like I really do feel like I've been called to do this work. And I know just like in general, Igbo people, which is like the people that, or the ethnic group that my family comes from, they're like people of service. And so it's just like something that actually feels natural, something that's like, always making sure to fight for people's autonomy is something that is like, I will never stop doing. That's something that my people have done, for generations. And so fighting for autonomy in this way is something that's like really special. That's what keeps me coming every day, being like, no, everyone should be able to choose what is best for themselves and their families without any restrictions, without any biases or barriers. Like that's what liberation looks like to me, So
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I have been asking this about providers, but switching now, abortion funds, right? So most people don't know anything about abortion. People who work in abortion care, they definitely don't know anything about abortion funds.
Yeah.
Like, who are these people? Because you mentioned abortions. I mean, I've mentioned abortion funds to people, and they're like,
what do you mean? What are you talking about?
Yeah. So if you had a chance to tell people in your community or like and out in the world about the work that you do, who you are, and like about abortion funds, what would you say?
Yeah. Well, specifically about ARC Southeast, we are a group of Southerners that are helping folks in Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, South Carolina, and Tennessee navigate the pathways to accessing safe and affordable reproductive health care, including abortion services. And specifically at our org, we believe that through education and leadership development that we'll be able to abolish stigma and restore dignity and justice in this work. And so saying that is just like, yeah, ARC Southeast is an abortion fund. We're a group that like pays for abortions, provides the logistical support. So that's rides, lodging, childcare, just whatever folks need to access care is where we step in. And we do this with a network of volunteers all throughout the Southeast who help provide these rides and open up their homes and, just create like safe spaces for people to like access basic health care, stuff that they shouldn't have to do, but we do out of the, the goodness of our hearts. So and it's also like a little act of like rebellion, every day to be like, who are you to tell me what I can do and what I could do it with, like what I could do for my community. Like I will give this person a ride, period, But yeah, there are like over 70 abortion funds in like 41 states all throughout the country, some in Mexico, some in Ireland, I believe, as well. And really, we're just a group of folks who help pay for abortions or help people like logistically figure out how to get to their appointments. Some call abortion funds an organizing powerhouse. And I would say that we do have that ability to really connect with our callers because they're people who are also in our communities. And yeah, abortion funds are like uniquely positioned in this space to like build power within our community to really create this like culture shift around how we even think about abortion based on providing this piece of direct service. And we acknowledge the reality that like a lot of people, have issues. Like most people don't just have like $500 in savings hanging out. And so if then that's like the average cost of a first trimester abortion. So knowing that there's a group of people who would donate some money towards that is really beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. And what would you want them to know about you as people? Regular everyday people?
Wow, that's a good one. Me as people. That I am people. Like for real, like yes, I do the most personally. Like do the most, but then I'm also not like superhuman. So yeah, like I'm human. Promise, Scout's honor. We'll make mistakes, or opportunities for improvement, however you want to frame it. But yeah, like just being human, knowing that like showing that same sort of grace for people, even though you may see their name in print or whatever, just knowing that they're human.
On Facebook.
Yeah, like on Facebook, on Instagram, Twitter. all the things. Yeah. Oh, and that like I like to personally like have a lot of fun. So I mean,
I know that from Instagram.
Yes, I actually love having a lot of fun and like making jokes. If there's ever a day that like I am not laughing, then there is a serious problem. So yeah, just knowing that like I feel like I can personally bring some joy and levity to like the really serious stuff that happens every day, but then also like don't play with it either, like at the same time.
How long have you been a member of ACN and how did you come to be a member of ACN?
I've been a member of ACN, or ARC Southeast has been a member of ACN since like the end of 2016 or so. And we came about being members because I thought it would be really important for us to build relationships with independent providers, since those are going to be most of the clinics that we fund at anyway. So this was a great opportunity to connect and meet and have access to some of the providers within our region as we're building out our funding programs. So that's why originally we joined. But what it's turned out to be is this really beautiful community of like activists and providers and allies, like all coming together. It's actually one of like my favorite conferences, being able to come to the ACN conference. But yeah, it just feels like a different type of home, where we're all doing some part of the struggle. We're all like, and we all like know we have a role in that. It's just a really special place to be.
And what do you value most about being an ACN member?
I value being able to witness like the care and intentions that's being put towards this commitment to racial justice, and seeing how that's reflected in like attendees of the conference, seeing how that's reflected in like clinic staff, people who are invited to come on panels and be in plenaries. Yeah, you can see that there's this like commitment towards like shifting the way that we've traditionally done this kind of work. So it's really cool to see that coming from like a national organization. I would say like NNAF feels like the fund equivalent of, like an ACN sort of thing, where it has this like grassroots sort of feel, where there's a lot of family and there's a lot of love for like everyone who does this work. So
what do you value about coming to the conference?
It feels kind of like a family reunion, kind of. I always am learning something, whether it's some sort of like professional development, learning like what people are thinking strategy-wise, learning about some of the different obstacles that some of our clinic partners are facing, that we may not get to see every single day because we live all the way in Atlanta. And just like hearing how other people have dealt with like various obstacles in their own regions and states. It's always like giving ideas of like what is possible outside of, or what is possible like in the South or in Georgia or in anywhere in the Southeast where we do this work. So there's definitely that value where it's like you're going to be learning something. ACN is amazing. And I love this particular meeting where there's like this combination of like funds and clinics and starting to have like the conversation about like how we best work together and what is going to be required for like collaboration as we move on. So I'm excited to see like where those conversations go.
This is Melissa, your host and founder of the Abortion Diary. For more information about the Abortion Care Network, visit their website at abortioncarenetwork.org. For more information about the Abortion Diary podcast, visit us on the web at theabortiondiary.com or email me with your questions or comments at melissa@theabortiondiary.com. If you're a fan of the podcast and would like to help us reach more folks, please subscribe on iTunes and write a review or rate this podcast, even if it's not how you listen. Your reviews and ratings will help us grow in the iTunes rankings and reach more folks. And you know, I also love to hear from you. Remember, you can listen to over 160 abortion stories on our website, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, or your favorite podcast app. There are more than 140 stories that have yet to be edited and posted on the Abortion Diaries podcast. As always, a special thanks to you for listening.